him start. Michael, I saw you reaching for one, you go right ahead.
Pat, just your thoughts on the ACC-SEC challenge and the spotlight that they helped put on the program?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome thing that ESPN does, the two conferences do, to highlight two of the best conferences in the country. And their teams going head-to-head obviously shines a spotlight on college basketball, but on our conferences as well. So it's a really good thing.
Do you know John Calipari at all? Have you had any interaction with him? And what are your thoughts on facing a guy who, I mean, he's obviously in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. I know Coach Cal. I think he knows me. I mean, obviously, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend. He's one of the best college basketball coaches of all time. Yeah, he's been very gracious to me over the years. Very classy guy. He was friends with Coach Prosser. I've talked about Coach Prosser, my mentor, many times. When I was playing at Xavier, I did more sitting than playing, but when I was a player at Xavier, we had just entered the Atlantic 10, and UMass was the class of the league at the time, and they were the #1 team in the country with Marcus Camby and all those guys. So I remember, competing against him back in the day. And one interesting story about Coach Cal, and it just talks to, the type of person he is. First of all, I've always said in getting to know him that if he wasn't in college coaching, he would, be governor or president or something like that, or, a billionaire CEO of some big company. He's just that type of guy. I'm not really, I guess I'm giving him credit a little bit for being the nudge that gets the Cintas Center built at Xavier University. But when we were in the A-10, and they were #1 in the country, and Xavier was this kind of like little engine that was trying to climb in the national landscape of college basketball, and UMass had kind of really hit, and they had just built their arena up there. And we were playing them. We weren't very good that year. It was it was our first year in the Atlantic 10. And Coach Cal would have to confirm exactly how this went, but I'm almost positive that Coach Prosser told me a story that the night before that game, and it was a big game, and a lot of people, I think it went to double overtime, single overtime, and we were sub 500. And even though we lost that game, a lot of people say that was kind of like one of the big boost and catalyst to growing that program. Well, the night before the game, Coach Prosser asked Coach Cal to come and talk to Xavier's biggest donors. Think about that. Like, you're competing in conference. The night before the game, Coach Cal shows up at something, whether it was at somebody's house, it was some function, and gave them this passionate rah-rah speech on if Xavier was really going to go all in and commit, they had to get this building built. And I think Mr. Colhett was there, who was the president of Cintas at the time. There were several other big donors. And sure enough, shortly thereafter, the Cintas Center stuff got approved. A couple years later, they broke ground and they built that building, and then the rest is history. I think that's a cool story because it talks about the type of person that he is, of kind of like helping others. But, you hope college coaching gets back to the point where there's kind of that close fraternity where, you in the summer when you're out at AU events, you go and, enjoy a dinner with other coaches. It just doesn't seem like that happens as much anymore. But Coach Prosser was that way, and Coach Cal comes from that era where the coaches really, really spent time together, and the coaching fraternity was something that that coaches took great pride in. Not that we don't all get along now and stuff like that, but I just feel like maybe it's the stakes, maybe it's the whatever it is, but we're all a little bit more territorial and things like that. So I thought that was a good story, and it talks to the type of person, type of character he has.
Yeah, when you fire up the film on this Arkansas squad, what do you think stands out the most to you on film when scouting?
I mean, a lot. They're extremely talented. It's one of the most talented teams in the country. They're extremely explosive. They're fast. They're athletic. The floor really tilts when they get the ball. I mean, it goes downhill. And they have a lot of very talented players all across their roster, both in their front court and in their back court. And they're obviously well coached as well. So, we have to be on it on both sides of the floor in the game on Wednesday. And obviously it's going to be a great college basketball atmosphere. The arena is going to be hopping, so the lights are going to be bright. It's going to be a big stage, and we're really excited about the opportunity going against one of the most talented teams in the country.
And this Arkansas game is the first game in a 4-game stretch where you play 3 ranked teams. Obviously, you always say the next game's the most important.
That's all
What
I
are you
care
hoping
about.
to learn from your team entering this crucial stretch?
I don't care about the stretch. I care about Arkansas on Wednesday, and I care about today's practice. It's all that matters. There's nothing to do with the stretch. It has to do with what's right in front of us, and that, like I said, is arguably the most talented team in the country coming up for us on Wednesday.
You mentioned the environment there. Obviously, that's a place that gets packed, gets loud. You've had one road game, sort of, kind of a friendly road game, but going into that game up in Cincinnati, did you like the mindset, the approach, that your veteran players had, and okay, it's time to go on the road and take care of business?
Yeah, that was a neutral site, and I mean it was as much pro Louisville as it was Cincinnati, so there were a lot of friendly faces and voices in the stands there, and it's going to be completely different in Fayetteville. We're going to have our own little sliver of seats there, but other than that, there's going to be, I don't know how many it seats, 15,000 people that dressed in different colors that aren't happy to see us. So it'll be a good test for our guys. It's one of the things, that makes high-level athletics awesome is those atmospheres, and we're looking forward to the opportunity.
Mr. Coach, this first true road game of the season for you guys. What do you expect? How do you prepare for that, especially when you have a freshman point guard?
He's wise and mature beyond his years. That's the last thing that I'm worried about. We have a very mature team. It's our first true road test, and we talk all the time about road excellence. Again, it goes back to that boring process word, but it's just even a heightened sense of being very particular, being very regimented in what we do from the time we zip open our bags and pack them, to the way we practice here before we leave, the way with which we travel, our mentality and our approach once we land, we get to the hotel, the quality of the repetitions of our walkthroughs, our film session, just putting yourself in the best position to play well on Wednesday night. That's the focus.
You mentioned that when scouting Arkansas, how well they can play downhill. How would you feel about your defense's ability to match up against that style, especially with how well you guys have performed on that end of the court over the last two and a half games?
Yeah, it'll be a matchup of two teams that really thrive in transition. It's one of their strengths, or it's their strength, it's our strength. So it'll be an interesting. I think it's going to be an unbelievably entertaining game for the people that are there and the people that are watching on a national television audience. So I'm sure it's a big key to the game to them, and it's a big key to the game, for us. There's a million other areas that concern me, both from an individual personnel standpoint they have, and then from a scheme standpoint. I'm just naming that one thing because it's you just see it on tape, man. When you turn the tape on, you squint your eyes, it looks like a bunch of world-class sprinters attacking from defense to offense.
Coach, where is Kaysen on his concussion protocol recovery, and is this maybe testing his patience extra since he's had the long recovery to begin with coming into the season?
Yeah. We say all the time, E plus R equals O, events plus response equals outcome. His response to all this has been really good. We tell him all the time, you can't dwell and focus on, what happened. It's the response, and his response both to his knee surgery and the recovery there, and then just some of these unfortunate little speed bumps that we've hit along the road. But he's been awesome with his mindset and his approach, and we're sure hoping as we get closer to game time, he'll be cleared.
Coach, if you actually ever talked to Kenny Payne, and is that something before the game you'll reach out and say,
coaches, we all talk to each other. It's a fraternity, it's a brotherhood, if you will. So, you see coaches on the road all the time, and I've seen Coach Payne several times this summer. We always take time to say hello and have a little talk. And I just remember, and I won't say who it was, but I just remember years ago when I was an assistant, and I remember a coach, that head coach, because as an assistant, you just kind of like want to stay in your own little lane. But you always, and I would say 98% of coaches, when they take the time to say hello to you, and I just remember a head coach years ago that was kind of a famous coach that sort of blew me off, and I never forget that, I try to, this has nothing to do with that question. It's just when I come out to shake hands, whether it's the director of basketball operations at Eastern Michigan, in a GA at Eastern or at Ohio or Eastern Michigan, where was it? And he was waiting outside the locker room for me after the game, and I didn't know he was waiting for me, but I saw a guy with the Ohio shirt on. I thought maybe he was waiting for our video coordinator to exchange something or whatever. And so I went in, I did my media stuff, and I came back out, and he was still there. And he came up, introduced himself, and you just got to pay stuff forward in coaching, because so many people did stuff for you along the way that helped you to get to where you're at, and you need to always be able to take time. I don't know why I'm going with all this stuff, but Urban Meyer was a guy that I read his book and then reached out to him when I was like in my first couple of years at Winthrop, and like, he doesn't know me from anything, followed up with me, had several telephone conversations with him, sent me a signed copy of his book, agreed to do a Zoom call or a teleconference with our players. He came into a team meeting. I mean, how cool is that? Just an example of some coaches, whether it's Coach Cal paying stuff forward and being good to me when I was a young assistant, Urban Meyer. But going back to your original question, we coaches care about each other. We just do. We're competitive. I always use the term, we try to tear each other's faces off. Because when you go out there between the lines, it's stinking nasty. But, when you see things happen, and in any sport, whether it's college football, college basketball, when coaches get let go, that, man, that, we make a lot of money and stuff like that. So I know we're not asking anybody to feel sorry for us, but we all know how, more than anybody, how it affects our families and how it affects our children and how it affects, that. And that matters to us more than anything, the trials and tribulations that our children and our wives and our families have to go through when stuff like that happens. So coaching fraternity is great in that regard, and that we care for each other. But we're some of the most competitive human beings on planet Earth. It's a heck of a way to make a living, but it beats working.
Could we guess who the coach was who blew you off?
I wouldn't tell you.
Have you ever been to Bud Walton, and what have you heard? Like, what kind of atmosphere you expect?
No, obviously, I've never played there. I've been there before, but I've never coached there. Back in the day when you used to be able to have AU tournaments on campus, that was a place that they used to host AU events. I remember one time the spring evaluation period was over Easter, and they don't do that anymore. But I remember being there for Easter, and we had a Catholic Mass in the morning with a bunch of college coaches in some little side room in Bud Walton Arena. I thought that was really cool. Not very interesting, but
Anything else for Coach Kelsey? Great, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.